We can just go on with it. So thanks again. Boy, can you guys believe you've been meeting for 2 months.
Mhm.
We are now our first meeting in March with 3 meetings scheduled. Next week is Thursday meeting. And then the one after that is a Wednesday. We moved it because of the voting, or having a big voting thing happening on Wednesday here, so
For the bowling?
voting.
Oh.
Oh. You got the
Bowling.
Yeah, we could do that too. Let's go. So yes, those are our next meetings, and these meetings are, kind of meant to kind of go over, I think, things we've talked about and make sure that you have what you need to do some analysis and, help make some recommendations. So, we're turning the table over to you guys, but not quite yet, almost. A little bit of housekeeping left to do. So, yeah, everybody made it. All right, so, hopefully you got a chance to look at the agenda, either online or just now in front of you. We're gonna do another update on the 6-year forecast. Good news. A reminder about using the budget book, because it's a great resource, and we'll talk about engagement activities and the, Engagement HQ platform, which was previously known as Bang the Table. And we'll talk about, ideas for revenue generation and cost savings from the different departments. And then Mr. Pooley is going to show us the magic he did last time and how that worked. And I guess maybe that's what we'll do again or whatever. So that, yeah, and then it'll go into, yours discussion time about moving forward and how you kind of want to plan, the other meetings. All right. Okay, so, update on 6-year financial forecast. So I'm gonna pull, this lovely spreadsheet. So this spreadsheet, actually, this one says scenarios. This is basically identical to what is in the shared drive, except I changed the title to say scenarios for right now. And so I've had so many conversations, forgive me if I'm repeating myself. I've been in circles on this financial forecast. So I believe when we last met, we talked about money spent on Holt property and how it was not accounted for, which was true. But there was another piece to the puzzle that was also not properly accounted for, which was, and again, this is prior to me being here, so I didn't have knowledge of these things happening, but, in 2020, the general fund, loaned another fund, the Sammamish Bridge Fund, 2.3, does that number sound familiar? $2.3 million. And it was an interfund loan. And so, that was done in advance of getting funding from other sources to pay for that work. So it was just a, temporary interfund loan to be paid back. That loan was paid back in 2021. But it didn't show up properly in the reports. So I don't want to go into all the minutia of it, but, at the end of the day, remember the chart, and I don't have it with me, I don't have the old one, but the chart that showed like revenues going up, and it was wrong. It's like the revenue should not be going up from 2021 to 2022, I believe. I'm gonna pull it up. So the correct chart is, I think, over here. Can you guys see this?
Yep.
No. How do I make it so you see the thing? This is smaller here. And then. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, so now you see in 2021, it did not have accounted for last time. The 2.3 million that was related to the interfund transfer. So now this is in here, this is now correct that we got, the general fund got that $2.3 million back, which made that number high, right? So we've given it away and we got it back. So the 2.3 number at 6.7 million fund balance is correct. gone back through everything. Went over it with Rob. And then we go down, in 2022, and then start to go back up again. So, and these going ups are basically due to the additions, the things that were done from the prior FSP, and those things getting implemented and seeing the full amounts coming through into these different years. And then, oh, I'm sorry, you know what, this is not the right, see, this is why I shouldn't have pulled this one up.
That one looks great, I like
This one, this one's got something in it that I'm gonna talk
Yeah.
about. Sorry, this has got an extra in there that I did not, so here, let's go back. This is the right one now. So this is the right one. So 6.7, we go down, and then it's a good, and then you see it starts to, it kind of levels off because we add some more money in late 2027, and then it drops because we don't have any more new revenue sources coming in after 2027. So 2027 is when we add in that 0.15 sales tax, transportation sales tax. That's where we add that in, and then it starts to tank because it can't keep up with the cost, the rising cost. But this is the correct one, which looks very much like the very first one I showed you.
Yeah.
There's only a, like, I don't know, a $90,000 adjustment that happened in the early stages that makes it a little bit different than the first one I showed you, but literally the first one I showed you was basically right, but a little bit off. And it really had to be corrected with both of those items that were a little weird. So, so we still have work to do. Right? You see how the lines, have a gap, and that's not good. But why was it different just a minute ago? And we'll get into this, but since you saw it. So one of the things that came up in all the conversations we had is, how much are different taxes, different utility taxes that we're charging, and are they at the maximum and whatnot? So our electric utility tax is currently at 4%. And 6% is the max. And so if I go to 2025 saying because we don't need to get voter approval or anything. If we, backspace. If we do that, that is $400,000 annually more if we go to 6%, which then, does that.
Looks nice.
By that one tax. I'm not saying that's the solution, but I'm just saying, because when I just wanted to have that number for you guys, and I'm like, that's a big number. Let me plug it in here. And I plug it in here and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty slick. I mean, you can see we're still going down slightly, but at least we're at a higher starting point. So, there you go. There's one little thing that you guys can be thinking about. So that's why that was different, and I had that in there when.
It seems a little odd that, like, keeping all of our numbers straight depends on if somebody been here and like knew the history. Is there some other way we keep track of this one? Because you said it happened in 2021, so for 3 years, we've been turning out the incorrect information, right? Then slightly incorrect.
I don't know when the last time this was presented out, and I know that, my predecessor, although this was created, there was also work that was done with MuniCast in creating some financial forecasts. So this one's different from theirs. So I don't know how much this got presented. Other than, I mean, me doing it, this was the first time was, in the last 6 months. I don't know. But yeah, there were some other areas where there's some things that weren't done quite right. What else was I gonna say about this? So yeah, so this is, again, kind of back to where we were. If you look at, and I have papers for you guys, because some people like papers. So we're gonna take one and pass it down. So any old versions, get rid of them. They are not helpful at this point. I did put on, as you can see on the, on this page here, I did write in what where we had flexibility. And so, you know, I say like 6 is max. We're at the max, we're at the max, we're at the max. I say flex when there's flexibility. The solid waste and the surface water, it really has no limit. But the cable, it has interesting wording. It says it really should be in alignment with other things that you're doing. Like, so we shouldn't have it be 20%, everything else is 6 or whatever. So I think we're pretty much in alignment there already. But there is flexibility with that rate. I think that's probably not an ideal rate, just my own personal, because cable revenues are probably going to continue to decline, so we shouldn't rely on that form of revenue going forward, and making changes to what we're charging there.
The ones that are flex, is there a legal cap on increases per year that you're allowed to
I
have?
don't think so, not that I'm aware of. I know there's some wording that you'll see when we get to the department stuff. I know Richard wrote some stuff about one of the rates and there's something we've done and we have to wait till 2025, but I don't remember what that was, but it'll come up a little bit later.
Property taxes, I think when it goes through, you can increase and
It's something that you can implement it, but then you have to wait a period of time before you do the next one, but I don't remember which one it was. So these 3 pages, the first page is what I've been showing you on the chart. The second page is the summary of both general and street funds. Some things to note on the second page, which I'll show you on here, is one is you can see that that here, there's a bit of a jump in 2024 because we see the full impact of the increase in vehicle fees. So it's only part of the year in 2023, so that bumps up. If you kind of want to track why are there bigger changes. And then also I mentioned the transportation sales tax in 2027. Remember that right now in the budget is at 0.15, which requires voter approval for the extra 5. We can do 0.10. But if you want to do 0.15, that requires voter approval. So, so if that's the case, this would only be about, 500, just shy of 500,000. We would lose $207,000 each year on that one. Yes.
I was trying to remember, so like 10, 12 years ago, when Center 68 was being built, they were doing the development agreement and there was some deal where they didn't have to pay property taxes for a number of years. And when I looked it up on their assessor's website, yeah, they're not paying their full property tax. So at what point does that stop and we get collecting, that's a big property tax. When do we start collecting?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question.
I remember
have no idea.
something about that, but I don't.
Yeah. A really good question. Okay, so then the second page, the third page goes into our expenditure details, which will relate to when we go into the conversation a little bit about the cost savings from departments. Some of them talk about some areas to maybe cut out of their budget, but this kind of gives you an idea of what each department's budget is, and other costs that are in those numbers. And then the very last speech page are all the revenue sources for the general fund. This general fund only, this is not sweep fund revenues. This is only general fund on the big page. So just want to explain what those are. You guys have access to this file. It is saved on that shared file. I suggest you save it onto your own. Don't mess with the one that's out there. People might not like that. I can always resave it out there, if something goes haywire with it, I can resave it. So yeah, any questions on this? Yes, Mike.
Yes, glad you pointed out the electric utility tax. We have a goal to reduce the use of fossil fuel to increase electricity.
Yep.
And I think the first milestone is 2030. So I think that's something to keep in mind here. We're going to see a reduction in the revenue on the gas side. We're going to need an increase on the electric side just to make up for that
Yeah.
And given the increase in use in electric, that could be even a richer source.
Exactly.
6%.
I was thinking about that too. I was like, well, this will be a double bonus as people use more electricity. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw that, but gas costs in 2025 are jumping dramatically.
Yeah, they're trying to encourage people not to use them.
So I know I'm like, I have a gas stove. I'm like, I gotta get rid of that gas stove. Get electric. Okay, so anything else on the 6-year forecast, which yay, it's back to being reasonable.
Yeah.
Thank you, I'm sure there's a lot of work in it.
Yeah, I've had some headaches and late nights over a lot of numbers.
And I'm sure the flashbacks will continue for a while.
That's right. Okay, so feel free to come back and ask questions, or if you happen to be looking in it and want to message me directly or through the FSP task force email, let me know what questions you might have. About that. Let's do this. Okay, so yeah, so I just want to remind you all, as I mentioned, our adopted budget, which is linked right here, hopefully it goes. I don't know why it just shows up randomly on this one page, but there's so much meat in this budget. It has a great table of contents. I mean, this has been my Bible. I've learned so much from this. There's lots of information about all of our programs in the beginning. There's such a great introduction. Our accomplishments, whatnot, but there's just a whole history book, in the very beginning of this document. And then, like, this is all beginning. And then eventually we get into each, eventually, where is it?
That's page 50, I think.
That's page 50, I'm gonna do this. There's so much in here. I'll be doing this year. This will be really fun.
Usually,
Okay, ARPA, and then talk about radar. So then we get into city profile and we talk about, all the basics about the city and through to page 64. And then we get into, then we get into budget, financial policies, debt, how much debt we have and our obligations there, and the tax worksheet. I'm not gonna go through all that. 3. Then we've got, then we get into our personnel, revenue, expenditure, the service level budgeting, and then all revenues and expenditures by fund. So again, more details on, supports. I'm gonna release that next time. Here's the SLP information, but then here's where you start kind of, okay, here's what's expected in the general fund and the street fund for revenues and expenditures. And then we get into the operating budget detail, and these sections for general fund obviously is key, right? This is what we're talking about. So here's the whole budget information, some actuals projected and budgets for everything, general fund revenue and general fund expenditures. We get into the details of each department. So as you are looking at, when we go over ideas for revenue savings, another thing to maybe have handy and look at are what's happening in these different departments. And it'll just help round out your understanding of what's going on in each budget. So usually it gives you the revenue and expenditures, if there are revenue, and then you'll see the employee counts. And then whatever other pertinent information is to the work that they do. Will give you a background into exactly what the services are that are provided by that group. This is really a lot of, there's a lot of meat in here. So again, if, as you're diving in and like, does it make sense to try to cut that program? What's happening in that department? What are they doing? You know, does it make sense? It's facing like, because a lot of them, I feel like we're offering up some monies and some of their suggestions, but like, even myself, I feel like 20 grand, what is that really gonna do to really help the budget? You know, but you could look and see and see if you see anything that maybe we didn't think of or that you want to ask about.
Did the department heads, have they started working on the email I sent you and Rob where?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's coming.
Okay, just being impatient then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming in a minute. Yeah, so I just wanted to point out that this is just chock full of really good stuff. At some point, the general fund ends and then we get into, the other fund, which, you know, you guys don't need to worry about. But yeah, as much as you wanna read through and see, you know, what's everybody doing? There's a lot of detail there. So with that, okay. Any questions about the budget book? So it's all online, all available. If there's anything, again, anything you want more details on, just let me know and I will, I'll do my best. I say that because I was informed last week, was it last?
Last
Wednesday?
Wednesday.
It goes by so fast.
Last Wednesday.
That my accountant is leaving.
During tax time.
Yeah, and I have, you know, 3 staff, so a third of my staff is leaving, and he's been here for like 18 years. So, so yeah, it's a little overwhelming. We have our annual report that's due at the end of May, and we have, of course, the FSP going on, and we have, you know, month ends to keep track of, and
We've been scrambling.
yeah. So I think we're gonna bring in a temporary person to help bridge the gap, because it's, you know, I don't know how it is in your world, but in my world, it's always like 2 months to hire. It like, in a perfect world, it's 2 months, you know, to post and
And
interview
get them up to speed.
and the start date, you know, like that's 2 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we're working on getting up to speed because when someone's been here 18 years and they, you know, certain things they've done that the rest of us haven't done, you know, there's more things we need to learn now too. And
Yeah.
I think we talked last time about the cost of turnover and
Yeah.
people leave. You have to pay out their vacation and you pay out part of their sick leave, and then you gotta pay the recruiting costs. So it's like, we shouldn't have talked about it last time.
Well, and the good news is because I'm like, oh my gosh, but as you guys know, the one thing I've talked about is, that's been doing great is our interest income. So literally in the finance budget, which we only get part of that money, I have plenty of money to cover him going out and bringing someone in temporarily and all that. Yay, the interest income. I really need you. So, but yeah, so he's leaving, so we're gonna do our best to keep everything moving, but just know that we might have a slower turnaround. Some things that we would like at this point, we just don't even know, so. We appreciate you guys, and put it out to your network, if you know anybody who's accounting, we prefer, you know, an accounting or finance degree, 3 years of experience, and it doesn't even have to be government experience, we prefer that, but it doesn't have to be that, so. If you know anybody who is
It just got posted today, so it should be on our website.
it's a great place to work.
18 years.
Yeah. I've been here a year and I love it. You know, sometimes you go somewhere and you're like, and I went to the city of Seattle. I don't know that. And, so glad to be here. All right, next up, so community engagement. All right, so I will pull up. I should have this. Let's see. So we've had some revisions, you probably wouldn't even notice it, but we have been, hopefully you guys see things that come out. and e-news and the top four and all those things. We're divvying out all of the, areas we can to try to reach people about what's happening. So we are here at March 6th. So we are gonna be doing a mailer. We were gonna do two, but we're gonna just do one, cost savings. And people get overwhelmed with a lot of messaging. Actually, they say they don't get communication, but then they get too much and like that either. So we're gonna do a mailer that's gonna talk about the balancing act tool and the town hall, in mid-March. We want to time the mailer with, the going online with the balancing act, so we don't have people getting it and trying to go there and it's not there yet, and then they don't want to ever come back, right? So like, I tried it, it didn't work. We'd rather have it going, and then they're like, oh, maybe let's see, and then it's like, yeah, this is great. So the engagement HQ, we say we're launching it, but it's been launched, like it's out there. I don't know if any of you have looked at it, but it is out there, and then we'll walk through that. Because I want your help. And then that will be the platform that Balancing Act is where Balancing Act will sit, is, in the engagement HQ. More, more communication again in March, and then we'll provide you, what does it say? Task force here, initial public preferences by the Balancing Act and other public input. Balancing Act closes in 1 week. Yeah, so Balancing Act is gonna go from the 15th to the 27th. And then, so we'll have input from that after the 27th, and then on the 3rd, of course, we'll do the open house. And we are looking to get an interpreter, Spanish interpreter to come to that. And then more top 4 e-newsletters and rounding it up at the end. So the goal is for you guys to have, to finalize the report recommendations, to get to Rob at the end of that meeting. And then Rob will try to finalize. We have I think you guys have, but maybe not, but we have our council retreat the weekend of April 27th, or that Friday, Saturday, 28th. It's that, and we'd like to have something to talk about. It might not be perfect, but it would be at least, some talking points, for us to walk through with them at that retreat. An ideal world, that'll be our goal. And then a special council meeting on May 1st. That is the plan today. Any questions on that? And I'm gonna go into engagement HQ a little more, but any questions on kind of what we're doing? Okay. All right. So, engagement HQ, you can get to it through speakupkenmore.com. So that's the website, speakupkenmore.com. So if those are your computers, yeah, you want to go to it, you might want to look at it from, my viewpoint's a little different because I'm an admin, so it looks just a little bit different. And I'm gonna do preview, but it still isn't quite exactly what you guys see as a non-admin. But, so I'm clicking on preview. Oh, I have to sign in again. I wonder if I have to- Seems like it's working though. It's like, don't sign in, but it's working.
Right, if you don't sign in, then it won't.
Yeah, maybe it'll, just look normal, because
Yeah.
this is what you guys probably see, sign in, register. So I think if you say register, then they want you to do a login, email, password. Was that gonna go away?
I was thinking it was just your email address, so.
I think that's what you have to do. Has anyone signed up?
I think you can, yeah, I've signed up. You can register, but I think that you can participate without registering.
Okay. All right, so this is what it looks like. Again, it is live. I mean, you guys should be able to get into it. Welcome to our open house for the finished sustainability plan. The space is to review and discuss the plan, and thank you for joining the conversation. So we have ground rules here. It says it's an inclusive space, encourage diverse voices. We should communicate respectfully, and then read the ground rules for participating on this page. Hopefully this works. Oh. There we go. So this is what we have. I think, Carla, you took,
I just condensed a little bit from the big list and took some of the major points, I think that. And if you guys want to add anything else? to it,
Yeah.
Let us know.
so if there's anything, I would suggest either tonight or just look at this, and let us know via email.
Good job.
I really want this on there. I think this is important. It's been left off, or I thought of this. Just let us know what else you want added on here. But again, we tried to just keep it concise. So,
Do they have to commit to this? Like I joined Facebook groups and said I have to agree to these rules before I'm allowed to talk.
no, you know, you're just supposed to read them.
Okay, so the people that are gonna violate these rules aren't actually gonna read them. Not trying to be a jerk, but that's what's gonna happen.
Or even click on the link.
But this allows us to say, hey, you're not following the ground rules.
So,
You're not allowed to.
Grounds for moderation.
Yeah.
These are the rules for
Yeah,
moderation.
basically cut and paste it and say, hey, this one's you're not doing.
So our thinking is, after we've had multiple conversations, Carla and I and Lauren, who's done this before and had this platform, has used this platform, is to let's be more free reigning, like allowing people to participate and then rein it in as we have to, right? So it's like, we don't want to be too restrictive for people so that they don't participate, but if it gets out of hand, let's put it on lockdown. So that's the ground rules, and then somewhere there is, so then over here are the FAQs on the side that and I think you can click on this and go.
You click on one of the
Or
questions.
do I have to click on the thank you? And then here they all are. So again, if you have other ones that you think would be good to have, we can add whatever.
I think one thing I would like to add is, so a 1% limit on property tax growth, explaining how that works, because many people will say, well, my thing went up X%. And so, my property tax went up by this much. And that's, there are dynamics with property values, there's the county, there's, school districts, all of those things factor in. But what Kenmore does is 1%. So being very
Well, maybe we
clear
could
about
put
that.
Pie chart. So we have a pie chart from 2023
Of where your taxes.
I think you're absolutely right. It's gotta say, due to state law, the city of Kenmore can only.
Yeah, so that your taxes from Kenmore have only been going up at most 1%. Barring changes in the value of your home relative to the rest of.
Yeah.
It's really city specific
Yeah.
taxes.
Yeah, but we'll put that. pie
That's a
chart
good
in too, because I think that's helpful to see all the other places that who else is taking your money. It's not just us, right?
Right.
You're like, "Oh, it's huge property tax bill. It's like, yeah, but this is our piece.
It's the number one thing that anytime anybody is ever talking about taxes,
Yeah.
they always get this
Bring that up.
particular thing. It's so hard to.
And then
If
if
they're
they-
$5,000-$6,000
if
are
it's
all
doing
going
increase,
to
they
the
think
city.
it's on the whole amount, right? They think, oh, my whole property tax bill is gonna go up by whatever percent.
Right.
That's not what's going up.
Yeah, there's that email that Rob passed around from Gig Harbor. They're raising it 56%, but it's really the total tax bill is only going up like some marginal amount. So
Exactly. I know, but it sounds like, wow. Even when I read it.
They built 3 new schools to pay for that.
yeah.
Well, I think it's also good to show people that, so with that 1% limit and the fact that we keep increasing our assessed value. So actually, the amount they pay has been going down.
Right,
In real terms.
right.
We moved that question to right underneath the first question, since the first question is like, why are expenses growing faster than revenues? And then I think, how long has a city portion of the property tax been capped at 1%? Is just as people
Yeah,
think.
They go together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's
it's
the
not like-
flow.
Yeah, they did it for 2 years and we're just not looking for ways to cut, we're in. Um,
That's great. Thank you.
I also wonder if on that piece, how long has the city portion, if you'd scroll back, yeah, been capped at 1%? It's a state initiative. I mean, I think people need to understand the city of Kenmore didn't cap it and is
Yeah.
now trying to live
That's
within it
true.
in some weird way.
Right.
And you could also call it Initiative 747.
Yeah.
If you wanted, so people could go
We could
look
link
at
to
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, can we mention, can I notice?
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
And ultimately, the voters did approve it.
Right.
So it is voter approved, not non-voter.
Right.
It was,
I realize it started as a non-voter approved, but it went to the voters.
yeah, I know that's so weird, but yeah.
Then illegal and then.
Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, the initiative was passed by voters, capping a routine annual increase at 1% without a return to the voters.
Oh, so meaning if it's over 1%, it's gotta be voter approved, making it a little
Yeah, but
clearer.
the initiative was approved by voters.
We did it to ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, there's three aspects of voter. In 2001, voters voted for this. That a 1% increase can be done without voter approval, and anything over that must be voter approved.
We'll fix them.
Right, and then I believe it was deemed unconstitutional, but the state picked it up and put it into regulation from via a different source, so.
I know, it has an interesting background.
Yeah.
Do we want to be more engaging with the will my voice actually matter and start with an of course exclamation point?
Yeah, yes.
Because,
Absolutely.
because if I read this is the final answer is yes, because that's the truth. However, it is 4 lines, and so it seems very much.
Will my voice matter? Well, the task force, let me tell you.
Yeah, let me tell you about the task force.
Yeah.
And so maybe make it just clear and then expand.
But don't bury the lead.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep thinking about these and so there's like.
I'm just interested in why the B and O tax question made it in versus some other things. It seems awfully specific. And I know there were a lot of other suggestions for things that were like, how could this affect me? That weren't addressed at all. So this seems to be focused on some sort of more empirical, fact-based stuff versus it's minds, not hearts and minds.
Yeah,
Does that
if
make you?
you wanna send us any information things that you think we should add into there.
I did. I wrote it into that
Okay,
sheet that we all were asked to contribute to.
Yeah.
I think we just picked some things from there, but we can definitely add more. I think the B and O tax, when I added it, I was thinking, well, so people know, oh, I can have a business here in Kenmore and I'm not gonna pay a B and O tax unless your cabinet or something was wanting them to know that, but we can.
I think also it helps, like, who is the predominant audience that we think will be asking questions at this stage? And I wonder if it might be individuals more than businesses right now. Throwing that out there as a possibility. But yeah, I think, I agree with the piece about move up the yes, your voice will actually matter, because that's the answer. But there might be one or two other questions. It doesn't have to be too lengthy that are really about the people and their concerns in participating rather than just fact-based data.
The one I'm thinking of is, yes, my voice matters. Okay, but where do I get to express my voice? And maybe list the various, so the public meeting, but also, this website,
Yeah.
to share, well, just how the engagement is collected. And if you feel strongly about this one way or the other, this is where we want to hear from you.
Love these ideas.
Is it,
And we'll go back through the list too, Holly, because I know there was more stuff, so we'll go back there.
Yeah, and I put like 6 or 8 things there, and if none of them get clicked, that's fine. I'm not having a moment here, but I do think that FAQs are usually designed to address the greatest concerns of the largest audience that will be engaging with them. And I think that's likely to be people who have strong feelings in addition to people who want facts. And if there was a balance in those FAQs between the two, I think it'd be helpful.
at the last meeting, Robin mentioned that admission tax that they were wavering on now, was only gonna be 100,000 and was gonna apply to 2 businesses. So just as a point of comparison, how much do we collect with the B&O tax? From the 2 businesses that do that?
I feel like he said it was like 40,000.
Yeah, it's in the,
We reviewed that at some point.
Yeah, it's in here, but it's combined with, affordable housing tax, which is inconsistent, but you can see B&O, actuals was 52 and 21, 51 and 22.
Okay,
It's budgeted in the 50s. Not a big number.
so with all the, additional noise and legal fees, we're probably giant market easy.
Okay, so we will do some more work on that, again, let us know if you think of others, or if you're hearing any rumblings and like this needs to be addressed. No. So, so if you're on here and,
Explain to me how K became the first last name in the alphabetical list, though. Like that's just never happened. I've never been at the top of the list.
you are,
Hey.
In the middle, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. easy.
nobody from the early letters of the alphabet wanted to be here, I don't know.
That was a typo.
Even look at our staff members, A too.
The new first
A is
letter.
allowed.
Definitely.
Let's just start with 10 more.
Yeah, it's just allowed. It's four.
I see.
Okay, so, so here, oh,
I haven't seen any results when I could.
I wonder if this is one I did.
is that what Lauren?
It is not good.
I don't know if it's live yet, because I hit,
Did you do this question?
yeah, I just
This
clicked on
one?
view results, yeah, and there was
Oh,
none.
but did you,
Did you answer?
No, I didn't answer yet, because I didn't know if you wanted
Hmm.
us to be the ones leading that, but
oh, but I don't know who created this poll.
okay, there's 2 now.
I think it
We
was,
have the right answer. We'll stop collecting.
Careful, are you?
Lauren said she
Yeah,
replaced.
we have to go with all questions.
Okay, okay.
So I don't think it's live yet, is it? Because
It is, I'm one of the,
live, like, has this gone out to our constituents?
I don't think it's been announced.
it's not being communicated, no.
It's thoughts,
That's what I'm saying.
right.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Not too much in there.
Yep. That's funny.
Okay.
All right, so yes, this is live. And then here's, if people want to ask questions, right? Type in your question, submit. Look it, I agree to all this. That's
There you
good.
go.
And then I guess over here, you have register now, so you wouldn't have to register, you can just submit your question. So what we would like you guys to do is as we will be messaging this, but that this is out, is for you guys to engage and
Yeah.
ask a question, that maybe, Rob or I can answer, and we can start dialogue on here, so people get a flavor of what this is about. And then how this can lead into the balancing act, right? And doing the budget simulation. So these types of questions are, maybe it's questions that you guys have, you want answers to, you put it out here, and then we can create a dialogue.
I don't see the translating, tool on this page,
Hmm. Yeah, we,
the accessibility. I think that's-
yeah, write down, you know, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Is that translated?
But it's not a, so it's not a
Oh,
Kenmore,
it's like a fine print.
it's not a Kenmore site.
Yeah, well,
So-
that is.
I think Lauren, our communications specialist, said that it could be
I thought,
set up to the
yeah, I thought so too.
translation.
It's put in, I don't see.
So. That's where we're at on this, so look around, I'll, I'll be following up with Lauren on some of these issues, but, yeah, the more we can start to kind of get things moving on that page and then, and figuring out how to refine it before we get into the balancing act, which will really draw people in there.
And I'll look at FAQs again, and if any of you have anything that you think that, you know, this is something that is really important and it's not on there, send a message through the website. Okay.
If it's helpful, I'd be willing to help with some of the responses too, having done a lot of this in my past.
Yeah.
I know you guys have so much on your plates.
Yeah.
So if appropriate, I would help with some
you.
responses.
Yeah, we will keep that in mind.
So do they have the ability, can anyone go into the FAQ portion of it? Is that something that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they can just see it, they can't change it, but they can ask a question, you know, on the main page. They can, anybody can go in and,
In the forum section, somebody
Yes.
can ask a question and somebody else
Here.
can answer it. But the FAQ is only done by you all as admins.
If you see a question coming up, again, you wanna move that question and the answer in the FAQ.
yeah, absolutely. Anything else you wanna see on this page or seeing on your own pages that's. Then we're adding, you know, some of our stuff here from the FSP site, and we also obviously have the FSP webpage here, so you can just go there.
I think anywhere you can put that graph of the cost of government going down is a good place to put that graph.
Thank you.
Looks good, easy to read.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. And what was that? Okay, so, let's go into the, ideas from the departments. Let's see. Oh, I had it. Okay. So, So,
I have to apologize to Edward. He did a lot of cut and paste, so it's.
I wasn't gonna say anything,
PowerPoint expert.
but I noticed.
It was
we didn't have time.
the last minute today trying to get everything.
It's like literally they gave, the information was due to us by end of day yesterday, so we literally just slapped it in here,
I
so.
know, but I was thinking, that's not the Kenmore template, but okay.
No, it's not, and it could look better, but you know what?
We don't need it fancy looking.
Yeah.
The data.
So again, each department gave us information, so they're not in any particular order other than just how we got through them together. So the first department is community development, and I have summarized her
11 pages.
11 pages, which are also in here, and we're not gonna go through her 11 pages, but they're in here for you if you wanna go through it later. But all I did was summarize what were in her 11 pages. So, and they did three things, our ask was three things: any potential general fund expense reductions, any revenue suggestions you have, and what are your long-term strategic needs? So that you guys can be thinking about that as you're thinking about, okay, how much money do we need going forward? Are there, you know, how much more, ask would there potentially be going forward? So for community development, she identified some time between the project manager and her time that could, be allocated to the park capital fund, and so that's around $27,000 of savings. And unless stated otherwise, these numbers are a 2-year number, so it's not an annualized, like, it's not, 54,000, it's 27,000 for the biennium. Interns budget is 32,000. They, they don't always use the full 32, you could, reduce that, but they do like to be able to have that option when they need it, so. So this is kind of what I was alluding to, that people really offered up everything. I don't think it's realistic to nickel and dime some of these areas, but where we can get more bang for the buck would be
I
ideal.
think in the detail she put that they hadn't used an intern in
Yeah.
a couple of years.
Yeah. And then she offered up small savings in supplies and training of 4,000. Her revenue suggestions, she didn't, she hasn't run the numbers, but she said possibly if they use consultants instead of having 3 FTEs, maybe that would be a savings, but she also said that originally when that change happened, it was to create savings by bringing it in-house. So who knows at this point, but that would be something that could be looked at.
Generally,
That's really an expense reduction though, rather than a revenue suggestion, correct?
That is,
Yeah, okay.
you're right, yeah. And then include a service fee and permitting costs to offset the long-term planning costs, and then she didn't know if it was feasible or legal to do that, but maybe is there a way to charge a fee to offset some of their costs that they have to do all their planning. Long-term, I wrote this sheet again. Her stuff went on and on, but possible savings in future budgets. So right now, in that spreadsheet that I showed earlier, for expenditures, there's just with some minor exceptions, it's a 5% across the board increase in expenditures every year. So that's what's planned. For the work that they do in community development, they have different costs related to the comprehensive plan work, their park plan work, and their consulting costs. So those vary, and it's in the details, but those vary every year. And some years it's higher and some years it's lower. For me, typically as a budget person, I want a consistent number. I don't want to be going all over the place. But it's something to think about with her because there are big differences from year to year. So how do we grab onto that? Because it's not growing at 5% for sure, because then it really kind of gets out of whack. Hers is really kind of just doing this along the way with probably a more subtle increase. So that's hers. And now I'm going to quickly so here's all of her stuff. I'm not going to go through all this, but feel free to read it.
An email I'd sent I was suggesting what happens if you reduce costs by 10%? How is it gonna impact the department? Should we assume that the first slide is effectively how that would be impacted?
Yeah, not to do it to
Okay.
that distinct level, especially once we got back to a better place with the forecast. Cause first we were talking about that and we thought, everybody's in a different place. Like some people might be able to do a harder cut than others. And so we just said, tell us what reductions you
Okay.
have. So it just became a more open-ended question versus a hard cut this amount out of your budget.
Are we talking about the revenue suggestions yet or not?
Yes. So what do you mean?
Well, just curious on under revenue suggestions, C, sell or lease city property. Are there specific pieces of property that aren't for sale, that haven't been actively put on market that can be, or what is that referencing?
Yeah, I know that somebody else had, I forget the, what's the location? Sorry. Somebody else mentioned that.
Okay.
The Cozy Inn, sell the Cozy Inn property. And once vacated, sell the post office and the, yard shell property that, that we're using, so there's properties that either could be the cozy inn, could be sold now, and the others once it's vacated, so.
And the rest not long term. It's a one-time injection. It is
Yeah,
not.
Yeah,
Or leasing would be,
right,
Leasing.
leasing,
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. yeah, definitely.
Beside that, yeah.
Yeah, so here's the ideas from development services, hers are, typical, reduce announcement on consultants, fill your positions more quickly, wait, where you can have savings on hiring people, do that. And then, hey, how are ya?
Good.
Decided to join us, huh? You've been having fun. Talking about the department ideas.
Oh, okay.
So compare Republic Services, costs with waste management to see if there's a savings there.
Hey, when we go on the public services website, like send us to waste management, so it seems like they're kind of connected already.
I don't know. Yeah.
Do we have, would it be possible to kind of have brackets to kind of have an idea, reduce amount spent on consultants, okay, but can we realistically reduce it by X amount and under X amount is just not realistic? Would it be possible to have more numbers tied to each of those suggestions? They don't have to be hard numbers, but just to get a ballpark of what that would mean.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I don't actually understand number 1B there. Like. Is it the garbage services we pay to? For our city
I
hall.
believe so.
and Stuff like that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not even possible, so I need to check. The Republic has a monopoly here. And for them to not have a monopoly and switch to somebody else, it's a 7 to 10 year runway,
Well,
yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe not possible.
Yeah,
Outside of the scope of our.
because they have a monopoly certificate with the state. And, for us to take it over and bid it out, we have to give them 7 years notice so they can amortize all their equipment and everything in case they lose the business here. So,
I think one of the things we're learning here under the development services category is that number 3 mitigates any of the suggestions, I think, in number 2. Because what it's really saying is, here's a couple of things we might be able to do, but because our costs are going to increase in this department or need to increase in this department, it's not a gain as much as it is a shift.
Sure.
Right.
Mhm.
So I think getting hard numbers here probably isn't that
No,
meaningful to our work.
for sure,
right?
but my comment actually applies to also the first department we saw had some ideas that weren't quantified. So I'm expecting the other slides might be the same situation, and so have that apply across the
Yeah.
board.
some do, some don't. Again, we didn't give them a lot of time and.
No, of course.
And Rob definitely was like, put numbers in where you can, so.
Thanks, Rob.
But I think that, yeah, where we can, I mean, some things I know even in my department, it'll take time to get a number,
I would argue that if it is not quantifiable in the timeline, the timeframe we need, then I would remove the line, because, for instance, reducing the amount of time and spent on consultants, 1A, if we don't know by how much, it's not a lever we can actually entertain. So I would just remove it outright and say, for this exercise, that's not even an option.
My thinking is we're likely to see that in this exercise in general across all the departments, that they're not big dollar options for us. But I agree with what you're saying, that we just make that assumption.
I also kind of looked at 1A as a best practice.
No, for sure,
Yeah,
but
it's something we can do, everybody should be doing that.
everybody should be doing, but
That's a
in this
chicken standard,
exercise,
not
in this exercise, if we need to put numbers to it, then there's no way we can, yeah, do it, but it's not factored into what we're doing because we don't know the impact, what the impact could be.
Unless that is something going on in every single department at the same time, you know.
Which again would need to be quantifiable in some way.
And I guess I don't know how much of our mandate is to go in and mess with operations either. This is operational stuff. And I don't know that is that something we feel like is our responsibility to go in and try and manage those budgets?
There's a certain amount of like due diligence that I think is warranted because every time these conversations come up, the public outcry is why are your costs growing? Why are you spending so much? Why are you hiring staff? All these kinds of things. And so I think this exercise, I don't expect there to be very much, or even if there is, it's going to be very small dollars. But I think that it enables all of us and the city staff to say, hey, no, we went through and we went line by line, department by department, and we looked at every option. And there just doesn't seem to be anything that we can cut without significantly reducing service.
And I'm comfortable the city staff have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to go through these slides and I will read every bit of work that they've done and be grateful for it. And yeah, but
I think it's generally true. There's not a lot of dollars here.
Right.
We don't really expect it, but I agree with you. It's building the argument for the public so they understand and have some credibility what we suggest. In relation to that, one of the things I would find useful here is when we're looking at the revenue and expense, a lot of those expenses, particularly the growth, have revenue offsets. So it'd be interesting to put those up against each other. Yeah, you may spend a lot more money on the new FTE to do permits, or to do inspections, but you collect a permit fee to cover that, or you should. So I think you get a look at the whole picture if you have the revenue offsets in there and not pull them off separately.
Yeah, I was just at, the reason I'm late is we have the Urban Land Institute here in town. They're doing a 2-day workshop. They brought in a panel of experts, and we're not spending city money, by the way, it's a grant. But they brought in a panel of experts and they're looking at our downtown and economic development. And so I was just at the first day wrap-up meeting with them. They're gonna meet again tomorrow. But they were wondering about our city's finances and things like that, and they think that, one of the things that we can do to spur economic development, one of many things, is have really good, fast, predictable permitting processes. And one of the things I was bemoaning was the staffing problems we've had post-pandemic. We've had vacancies in those positions, and we haven't been able to fill some of them or fill them quickly or adequately. And we've actually, our permit turnaround time has slowed down because of our staffing issues. And in turn, because we've had staff vacancies, we've had to turn to consultants to help us. And the consultants are way more expensive, as she points out up there. So you actually save money when you replace consultants with staff. And to Mike's point, you can turn more permits around, arguably you get more revenue.
Our permit fees actually cover the cost of those FTE?
Yes, so every few years, I think we're overdue, but every few years we do an analysis to look at our fees and if they're covering our costs. And when it comes to permit fees, like building permits and inspections and things like that, our study showed that we were covering 100% of our costs. When it comes to land use fees, so land use fee is like when you're applying to do a subdivision of a lot. The policy there was to cover 80% of the cost with fees, not 100%. The theory behind that is that when you're doing land use fees, you're not just serving the applicant, you're serving the entire community. And so the community should bear some of that cost. That's a philosophical belief, you can bring it to 100 if you want. But when it comes to the actual building and building permit, then we charge 100% of the cost. And then every year, we increase all those fees by whatever inflation is.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one. So this is city managers, he did a good job with applying some numbers. But some of them you can see say to be determined, need to do further research. I think to add on to what you guys have been saying, I think this has been a really good exercise for the staff to do, just to kind of start thinking down these paths of ways to save some money or be more creative, you know, and think about other options and ways to do things. I think it's been a good thing.
Remind me, Cape, what program was that?
That's the audit, the.
Oh,
total
for enforcement, yeah, yep.
Who do we team up with for Racer?
Yeah, it's city.
I don't know. Bob knows.
Oh, yeah, we team up with Kirkland, Bothell, Wake Forest Park, and Shoreline. And that's that co-responder program where mental health professionals respond with police. You guys understand what quarterly is? Quarterly reduced to 2 times a year. No, I was gonna be. That's our newsletter.
Oh, I thought we were gonna get rid of 2 quarters.
Just send everybody home for
Yeah.
Q1 and Q3.
That's our newsletter that we send out. We send it out 4 times a year.
I thought it was that corner. So this was, quarterly reduced 2 times a year.
But like that first one, regardless of what the savings are, it's just for the city manager's department because Cape. That's all fungible in the general fund. So any savings to the city manager's department would.
Cape is a different fund. So.
Oh, it's a different fund.
Yeah, it is. It's its own
Is the
standalone.
road fund?
Huh?
Isn't it the road fund?
Cape, no, Cape is a separate fund.
Okay.
Yeah, so, so it would be a savings if we can capture those costs. And it's funny because I just got an email about this to talk to that attorney and how can she separate it, because it's still we get one invoice, you know, it doesn't break up the cost, so. It's not big dollars, you know, I've seen a couple of the invoices, so, but again, I think long term, that makes sense to be able to identify that and charge it appropriately where it belongs.
So how does the work study program differ from the intern?
I think I understood it as different interns for different departments. Still interns, but just different departments using interns.
Please don't reduce the newsletter.
Yeah.
One more thing on Cape is, so every single ticket has to be reviewed by a police officer. And we're not charging that to Cape. So the general fund is absorbing the police costs of administering Cape. So one idea is to charge police officer time to the photo enforcement program, the time spent reviewing the tickets.
Didn't we talk earlier also about, does it have to be done by an officer? Yeah.
Right now it does, but state law, there's a bill that might allow civilians to do it, and I think it's about to get passed, if it hasn't been passed, the legislative session ends tomorrow. So that bill might have gotten passed, I have to check.
Right, revenue opportunities, this is still for city manager's office, implement a lodging tax. I just wanna say, it mentions the admissions tax, but that's already built in to this budget. There was an assumption that we were doing the admissions tax, and it's already in the budget.
I actually recommend it. Don't do it for the reasons I mentioned last time.
Yeah.
Then, on lodging tax, it says budget neutral. That's somewhat arguable because you could charge, like, say, so we have staff that run events. That's not the only thing they do, but. And then there's the cost of the events themselves, like the concerts and the movies and the fireworks. You can use lodging tax to help pay for those events. So in that sense, it would not be revenue neutral. The question is though, is do you want lodging tax to go pay for those things? Or do you want it to truly go to more, well, yeah, to more tourism related things? So that's a whole other policy discussion. I'm not saying the events are not, they would qualify for lodging tax, but they're not as tourism related as some other activities are. So,
And that lodging tax is what we referred to last week as St. Edwards and maybe a couple of other smaller motels that we have.
yeah. You may recall it would not be an increase in the tax.
It's being used for
Yeah,
additional promotion, I think it was the market.
right, we would,
It goes to us instead of the county.
yeah, right now it goes to the county, so if we adopted the tax, we would just defer the county's share.
Are the long-term strategic needs in each of these already calculated into your budget projections? Or are these in addition to the calculations already present in your budget projections?
That question came up in my head today when I was doing this. Some things I can tell that are, and some things I don't know. Like Racer is in the budget, so this line item for Racer is captured. I don't know if the public record software, is a part of that budget line. I mean, there's no way I had time to check all the different budgets. There's some things I know off the top of my head that are, but yeah, you guys would need to know if those are new or not, and I can't tell you that answer for every single one of these.
Because again, I think they may mitigate, if the answer is these are new, they may mitigate any savings suggestions that have been made.
Absolutely. Well, and I will say that the FTEs at the bottom are new. For sure.
And sizable
Yes.
per annum. They're not a one-timer.
So that's it for that, or, that was, the city manager. So engineering, he just has this one page, 1, 2, and 3 relate to, the, asks. So, moving the engineers and project manager entirely to the capital program. Pro saves general fund, con impacts capital fund already stretched thin. And he gives a number, yay. Reduce general consulting budget up to $70,000. It saves general fund, but it reduces engineering we can do and may put city at risk if we don't do certain studies. Move legal fees to capital fund where appropriate. Also charge back legal fees to developers and other permit holders when appropriate. If not doing, again, impacts capital fund already stretched thin. 2, revenue sources, increased number of automated enforcement cameras to offset some police costs and staffing costs. Are we maximizing our franchise fee and utility tax rates? Just what I showed you guys earlier with the one that we're not maximizing. Increase utility permit fees if allowed. 3, future consultant fee increases to develop required plans, approximately 250 in the next biennium, but can discuss. Nothing else would impact. So that's his only big item. Any questions about engineering? Anything you want to add, Rob?
That charging legal fees, is that basically we would charge the developer instead of the taxpayer? Is that what that means?
I didn't quite hear you.
So that back charging the legal fees to developers,
Oh.
is that like, basically we're giving that to them for free now and then we're gonna charge them to?
Well, I mean, we're just paying legal costs. So yeah, we're not, it's kind of like what we were talking about before with the with the Cape revenue. We're not assigning those hours, that time against that. So, it would be the same thing where it's like, okay, do we somehow capture those costs to increase what we charge to developers and permit holders? So how do we capture our legal costs and apply them to the right places that are making us incur those costs? Environmental services, this is information you've seen before in his presentation about what his budget is. Again, remember, environmental services, only has so much in the general fund. Most of his is in, the swim fund. So he says cuts would only really be viable in the cap operational expenses, the down with the little wording under number one. Which support implementation of cap programs, incentives, use of consultants, match for grants, hiring. GIS analysis partially funded through general fund, only a third. To provide citywide services, an option could be to reduce and fully fund through swim only. I think, yeah, so here's hers. That 0.3392,000 for 2 years.
But the move for the GIS analyst, would it be sustainable to swim? If
Good question.
if there was a switch.
Swim could definitely keep her busy full time, but it would be a hit to the rest of the organization if we couldn't access GIS analysts. For things like roads and parks and private and public development. So, we're pretty lean, even with just one GIS analyst, we're pretty lean. This is, my data here is a few years old, but I remember at one point, city of Bothell, double our population, has 5 GIS analysts. So I don't know the number now, it's been a few years, so I don't know if they've cut or what, but I remember a few years ago, they had 5 GIS analysts, so just double our population, so.
So under number 2, you can, in the smaller print, this is where we kind of touched on this earlier. So natural gas is at 6%, that's the max. Solid waste utility, 10%, no limit, could increase. The vehicle license fee, this is the one where we can increase it to 50 after 24 months or February 2025. So that's the one that has a time frame on it. Surface water utility, 6%, no limit, could increase. And then he mentions missing is that the swim fund we do get an overhead transfer, to the tune of 600,000+ to cover overhead costs, right? So they're helping, cover that. Long-term impacts, growing cap implementation needs, also cap costs may be hidden throughout general fund. For example, replacing vehicles with EVs that are more expensive, building, retrofitting higher efficiency and more costly facilities. So, that could be hitting all sorts of different budgets to do some of that work. Impacts to revenue may also be realized with higher overhead provided to general fund and higher swim utility tax revenues as swim fees increase.
You've been doing the hybrids and electric vehicles for a while, and generally they cost less to maintain. Is that something that you have noticed over time? So we're actually, while the upfront costs are higher, they're cheaper to maintain, and haven't we, and I thought we were getting grants for a lot of the purchase of.
I don't know the answer. I've never seen an analysis of our vehicles and like the transition over time, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know, when we got our first electric vehicle, and does North Shore do the maintenance on those, like?
They said they did no maintenance on EV,
Yeah.
right?
I haven't maintained my car.
I know,
That's what I was thinking, I don't, recall. any talks about-
There is none,
the air filter, like, every,
if you want, if you want.
For the cabin air filter,
And, yeah.
interesting. Yeah, you're not changing the oil, you're not changing the air filter on
No,
there.
there's
So there is no.
tires, yeah, but sure. but it's less maintenance, it's just, yeah, that is a incompressible thing depending on how you drive, but yeah.
Experience.
No, I'm very good with my tires. There's no yearly maintenance required.
After the battery ends up needing to be replaced after so many years, right? So isn't that a big cost?
Most of the manufacturers are actually warrantying the battery for like 10, 15 years, because they know that everybody's worried about the battery.
But I mean, add up the costs of like, the cost that replacing the timing belt and replacing, those standard every 50,000 miles, every 25,000 miles you have to do with a combustion car. You add all those up and that's gonna be about the same as a battery.
Plus, for city use, battery autonomy, battery range decrease doesn't impact you, because if you charge the car every night, then if your autonomy went from 80 to 60 miles, still more than enough to do what needs to be done in the day.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's the degradation is the total range on the battery, which if you're only using, if you're not going on long road trips, then that doesn't really matter as much.
The insurance cost might be different.
It's actually cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper. The license plate tags, however, are I'm paying a lot there, but that's the only place where I'm paying a lot.
Kimmel will start getting that money in like 2025, I think.
Did you say cheaper insurance?
Yeah.
Why is that?
No, I don't question it.
Good thinking.
Why are you?
Because the likelihood of your car breaking down is lower. And therefore, the likelihood of you driving a less than optimally performing car on the road is decreased.
Interesting.
It may be that like the newer ones are getting the autonomous emergency braking, and sometimes with pedestrian detection.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting thought. We could actually probably run some numbers on that. They'd be estimates, but.
I think it helps around here too, that, because we figured it out back in 2017 with our own car. So our electric rates through Puget Sound Energy, because they wholesale through Seattle, they tend to be lower. I think they're always bragging about how much lower they are than the rest of the country.
And compared to filling the car up with petrol anyway, it is infinitely cheaper.
Yeah, in 2017, when we ran the numbers, as long as gas was higher than like $2.25 a gallon, it was cheaper to do electricity. It was Puget Sound Energy rates at that time. Gas is never that low.
Okay, so police department, expense reductions and all community engagement projects. Sounds so awful.
Yeah.
A big $5 grand.
Yeah, let's do that one.
And every event becomes a huge free fall.
No augmented training outside of what KCSO requires or pays for, 10 grand, and do not replace broken or outdated equipment. I don't know how that would work. I don't even get that suggestion, but.
Broken tweezers.
Revenue suggestions, well, additional school zone cameras.
Can I talk about one meeting for a second?
Yeah.
So, King County Sheriff's Office pays for the minimum type of training that they need, whether it's, firearms qualifications or, how they, oh, my brain's not working today, but they.
Active shooter.
Yes, active shooter, that's a good one. There's some trainings that they go through that the entire sheriff's department has their officers go through, and they pay for that. Kind of as an added perk for working in Kenmore. We supplement their training package with some extra training, kind of more soft skills type things. And maybe some, community oriented policing type stuff. Things that are will help them more in their career development, people skills type things. And it's always been, because we always want to just within small means, we want to create just a little extra reason to come to Kenmore, right? Because they have the entire sheriff's department to choose from. And so we have provided more training than is required. And it's been a voluntary thing, so it's been a kind of a little perk for working in Kenmore.
Small price to pay for those little perks, pay for themselves.
I like the idea of the pavilion parking input. I mean, anything that we can push down to the lowest level of pay.
Volunteers.
That could be an issue.
You mean I get to hand tickets out to cars? Like, I will volunteer for that.
Our radar gun.
I live in front of a school. I'll do it for free.
We used to have a radar gun at the front counter that people could check out. We still have that.
I'll take it out if that's possible.
So given that, you've said, I think you've said in the past that CAPE is a fairly significant revenue generator, and it's just at 2 elementary schools right now. I think revenue suggestion for 2A is pretty promising.
But
2B too.
And 2B is, yeah, that's not specific to the CAPE program though, right? Those are just
Yeah.
red light cameras, but, I'm just awfully curious why there's only an eastbound left turn red light camera anyway at 61st and Bothell versus
That was targeting the non.
an all around red light.
Oh, it's the traffic. A lot of people doing rush hour traffic that tends to be, that's where Jack in the Box, is that where?
Yeah.
LA?
Yeah, is that where they're most often trying to run reds to get through a turn signal or something?
yeah.
To go up north.
People zipping through Kenmore.
So it was just like warranted specifically for that
Based
turn
on
lane.
actual violations happening, and more importantly, the conflicts with pedestrians. More than 50% of the time, pedestrians trying to cross at that time of day, were having a conflict with red light runners.
Yeah.
So it was a safety issue at that particular spot.
I like 2A and 2B, but do we have, I would assume that as cameras get implemented, people would be more careful over time, and therefore it would be a reduction in revenue over time. Do we have an idea of how to model that?
Well, I mean, it's so early for us, but apparently, what I'm told is the other cities that are doing it, they continue to bring in a lot of money. So,
The companies that run these programs have pretty solid data on what they get from them. And when we went through this last time, it was like, yeah, you can pretty much count, like, it's a pretty solid estimate, and
Okay.
so.
and I think too, I mean, yes, people are more careful, but remember, it doesn't go on your record. So it's purely like, oh, I now have to pay $50 for this ticket, and boom, it's done. And so it's not as painful as if it actually went on your driving record.
Correct.
So,
Every year, we've got a new group of parents coming in for that.
New high school students,
So his babies were getting born.
That's true.
more California transplants.
Nothing wrong with that.
I'm a California transplant.
Careful what you say.
I was gonna say, I'd be curious to see how many people that get these tickets live in Kenmore versus maybe it's more people from outside that don't realize they're there, because that then you're gonna be more careful.
And both 73rd and Juanita have that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, and that's a key, because I think, so, if you're talking about a red light camera at 73rd Bothell Lane, since we already have the school camera there on 73rd, you're already targeting the residents on 73rd one time. So maybe we don't wanna get them twice, and put them, like, congregate them over in that direction. But I think the one on Simon's Road, it would, especially because this is not on the driving record, it would be a good way to start teaching the high school kids how to drive safely if they keep getting tickets in the mail.
So I'm curious, did you start with the 2 because that's what was initially affordable, or were you piloting? What was your plan, or is your plan for more cameras at schools?
Piloting, and those were the 2 schools where we were seeing the most violations.
on the task force, we tried to convince ourselves that we were doing it for safety. As much as we were doing
It
it
does
for budget.
feel, the principal send out, she noticed like impactful changes when it does enforce. So, as a parent, getting that, it was comforting to see that safety is.
Yeah.
Well, those schools are both off major thoroughfares.
Right.
One of them's a core arterial, right? Juanita.
Yeah, Simon's is like 412, but
And our traffic engineer has reported a 98% reduction in violations at these two schools on cameras. And we just looked at the numbers with Melinda yesterday, and it looks like we're netting $50,000 a month. So about, I don't know the split, but $25,000 net per camera, per location.
And to give you,
Increased safety.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like a.
That's absolutely.
so, and our estimate or the estimated impact was 1.7 million per year.
yeah, and it's not that. So what did we budget? We budgeted $400,000 a year because we wanted to be safe and not.
Conservative.
Yeah, so we didn't go with the 1.7, we went with 400,000. So it's looking like it's gonna be about 600,000 a year, and then with the addition of the third light, it'll be more.
and if we get civilians to do the ticket.
Yeah, he does say that that might be revenue neutral, unless all of you are volunteering to.
But he's also suggesting they're the ones who, oh, maybe he is. I didn't read C as a suggestion that would be related to the CAVE program. I read it as a separate.
Oh, it is.
suggestion
Yeah,
for
it's
Other
separate.
parking
But
infractions.
it could be both,
Yeah,
But this also reduces, FTE, because, not the current chief, but a previous chief used to sit in front of Timber Elementary every single morning and every single afternoon and run radar.
How many schools are in the city of Canton?
5,
And how many are elementary versus the others?
3 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high.
What's the other elementary?
Lockwood, yes.
Oh, Morelands.
Yeah.
Which doesn't see the same degree of traffic, does it?
No, no. And Kenmore kids do go to Lockwood, but it's technically on the other side of the boat.
And you could put 2 new cameras on Simons, one at school zone at the high school, and then one in front of the road, in front of Rhododendron Park, which we do see a lot of erratic behavior there. Driving behavior
Yeah, along the bridge,
From the golfers.
along the,
along the bridge, on the bridge.
no, on Simon, as you're coming from the high school, in front of Rhododendron Park,
Okay.
That's quite a downhill incline, and I think people just let it rip.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know a young woman, a 12-year-old girl that, was walking her dog at 72nd. And, she was in the crosswalk and the driver didn't see her. And she kind of backed off a little bit and he ran over her foot. So I hear stories like that on that particular stretch all the time.
Right. Cause it used to, I mean, back in like 2014, 2015, it used to take like 3 light cycles sometimes to get through there at the end of the full day. But people start getting impatient.
Do we have we done any estimates on what adding those additional locations would add? Do we think it would be comparable to the ones that we had currently
Couple
have?
100,000 a year.
So.
Per.
So, sorry, and what was currently we have, you said it was 400,000 or 600,000 that we're getting for 2 cameras?
yeah.
2 locations? And so potentially if we add the other 2 locations, that could be an additional.
One other thing to know is there's a bill in the state legislature that's modifying how the revenue can get used and everything. We think it would still give us the flexibility we need, but until the final bill gets adopted, we don't know, and it might be adopted by now. But another thing that bill has in it is it allows for cameras for bus lane cheaters.
Yep.
So that was special.
Yeah,
22, yeah.
I'm just waiting for speeding too. So
I'm assuming you would need to be fairly, slow to adopt that many checks in such a small community. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, you can really set up your public's back by having profound enforcement that you don't see in other communities, particularly as they're revenue generators and people scratch below that surface. A lot of people wouldn't identify with living in a super policed community at this point in our climate.
Sure, but 40,000 in Medea don't live there. That's a resource from that. They're just driving through.
Is
I'm
Kenmore,
not sure if that's true in the school zones.
No,
I think it's about.
But it's 68 to 1, definitely.
you're talking about 522?
Yeah.
But 68 to 1, even definitely has. A lot of people that are not.
I agree with you. We don't want to deal with the police, but I'm all about making money outside traffic.
Uh-huh.
were you saying something?
yeah, I was gonna ask, is Kenmore taking part in that grant program for the Safe Streets for All? So I think we heard about something, I think there's a grant for Safe Streets for All for 2024.
Not familiar with it. Safe
Yeah,
streets.
I heard about it in NPR. I took a note here. That it's available, but nobody's applying for it because people don't have grant writers. But I think it gives you, yeah, money for, I think, not sure what particular streets, but for sidewalks and things like that for cities. So I wasn't sure whether Kenmore is involved in that or not.
Yeah, we can ask our city engineer, safe streets for all.
Yes, Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A grant program.
From Wausau.
Okay, I want to do a time check. It is 8:06. We still gotta get to Jeff's spreadsheet and I still have a couple more slides to go through, so. And does anyone notice what changed? It slowed things, oh.
I wasn't gonna say.
Coordination.
I know, she knows.
One more thing, what Holly was saying is, yeah, I think our residents do have a kind of a max tolerance for that kind of enforcement. By comparison, Lake Forest Park is about 15,000 population, it's about 10,000 less than us. I think they have about 7 cameras and counting.
And they're tricky cameras, the one that's in front of the school going up and down the hill, that one is, you drive at 5.
Yeah. Coming downhill from 32.
And prior to the cameras, they had a terrible reputation for being the worst one, police force in the area for parking in people's driveways and yanking you off the road for like 3 miles over the speed. I mean, Lake Forest Park has a reputation. And I remember one time I was speeding, I'm gonna admit it, in the fleet car for my company, no less. That was terrible. And I got a $193 ticket for going like 4 miles over the speed limit near a school at night. So they're very hawkish there, and I think that they're known for it.
Like Briar.
Right, I think it's
Briar, yes.
Briar's another, yeah.
Is Briar the same?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't do 26 at Briar.
yeah.
Well, speaking of part of the, problem, like, so with the school zone cameras, I mean, in most fields, it's hard to go like 20 miles an hour, really. I mean, I put my car in low gear whenever I go in school zone. Just so that, like, I can't really go that fast, you know?
I just assume if it's a pretty good financial return for the nature of the program, right? And I think most members of the community recognize safety in school zones is really important and I probably have a much higher tolerance for supporting that kind of enforcement in areas like that. I'm just making an assumption, but I think it would probably hold true. I don't know.
I've seen recently comments, denouncing red light cameras as, money grabs, which data proves otherwise, but anyway. So I would like to think so.
I imagine they are also that, but it's the disincentive to speed is the money part, right?
So yeah, I trust the red light cameras and other types of cameras more than kind of the arbitrary having a cop
Sure.
choose who to
Sure.
So.
And I appreciate it when I'm trying to turn and I don't have this line of cars blocking me now going, right? Because they don't want to sit in the middle of the, intersection, so.
Speaking of Lake Forest Park and just with regards to this, I see some events might be considered ticketable. are those things that have been considered, specifically maybe the concerts? I mean, as a user of those, I like that they're free, but, I was just thinking that Lake Forest Park, I had some concerts last summer, and those concerts at Animal Acres, and those had a ticket
Mhm.
and had barriers, so.
I talked with somebody, maybe it was Jeff or somebody
Yeah.
last time about, maybe you make it, optional to give a donation towards the event, as they come in. And I think that, that would be a way to maybe ease into future costs and just see how willing people are to either make a monetary or even maybe make a food donation, a canned food, and then we'll do that. So, I think that may be something that could get people thinking about, if we want these things, we might have to give a little money so we can put them on.
Yeah, and we looked at like how much each of those cost and then how many people are actually affected, like are participating. Cause we don't want to get rid of like all of them that are low, but you want to be able to have events for the range of population that we like. But is there any that are, like, not many people are really attending?
Our summer concerts have great attendance. And some of the movies, fireworks,
Yeah, but fireworks isn't really ticketable because
yeah.
you gotta see them.
But again, if you have, like, if people are walking through buying the, the lights and the food and stuff like that, if you have a booth that says, hey, you're coming in from Edmonds or you're coming in from wherever to come view our fireworks show, like, would you mind?
Oh, yeah.
Suggest a donation, like, it's
But-
not a fee, but you could.
No, for sure, but could we quantify that with an expected revenue?
Well, you get the attendance, you make an assumption about 5% of people make the suggested donation of $5 or $10 or something like that, come up with some estimate.
Yeah.
Well, you weren't asking the estimate of what we get, you were asking the estimate of what it costs.
No, I was I was thinking if we were to consider ticketing or donations, for this group, it only becomes meaningful if we can put a potential dollar number behind it. So if we were to consider that, then if that's one of our recommendations, we need to also assign a dollar value to what we're expecting to generate.
Oh, I see. I think you'd need both in that case, right? Because otherwise, why would we make a recommendation if we don't know what it's offsetting?
For sure.
Right, yeah, so I guess you'd.
Well, we do know how much.
Well, we do know how much it costs and we
Per
don't have to assign the cost to the event. But more just if the event is funded by the general fund, then the money we get from it would go back to the general fund.
Offset.
As a partial or entire offset, if we're really lucky.
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, but my belief would be that if we're asking Rob, to take recommendations to the city council, they need numbers on both sides, which is so.
For sure, we have the numbers, so.
You have one giant number.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think.
And we have some breakdowns. I mean,
Yeah.
I know I have.
That's
budgeted
all.
information.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no,
I'm
for
sure
sure.
we can.
And then, also we're balancing, how much does it cost to collect those donations? And have people, like, especially if we're gonna take it on entry, we gotta cover all the entrances on these events. Is that gonna offset our?
Yeah, and so that's why I don't think necessarily it would apply to every event. For instance, fireworks in Logboom Park might be hard, and we might just quantify it with a donation jar where that would be the only kind of enforcement that could happen. But thinking back to Animal Acres, they have naturally a cordoned off area with the barriers, and so it's easy for them to set up a booth at the entrance. If the concerts or which are cordoned off as well, because the ones with St. Edwards have parking that is directed there. So there is the possibility of having kind of gated access.
Fundamentally, from a DEI lens, I would be pretty opposed to any kind of cordoned off, like you have to pay a fee to get in, like community events feel
No,
like.
but in terms of funneling, so for the St. Edwards concert, you can walk, I guess, but most people come by car. And then they are naturally funneled towards the concert area. I'm not saying, hey, if you want to pass, you gotta pay. I agree with you. But if we have a donation jar there, then we can, then that is much more realistic, a revenue generator than in the dark, at Lagoon Park, in the middle of nowhere for the fireworks, where most people won't see it, and we get 0.5% of people who maybe would be willing to give.
Yeah, you want people to pass by
Yeah,
the donation place, right? That have the opportunity to donate.
exactly.
Right, without making it feel like they're.
Right.
Another thing that I'm just thinking about, this is a large enough sum that I think we're just kind of pulling it apart a little bit right now. What would be as a resident of Kenmore, is there anything that Kenmore gives back to me as a city that's pleasant or fun or nice that isn't asking me for money? Because I'm in a transactional relationship in other ways with the city of Kenwood. I understand it takes my tax dollars to keep the roads maintained and to, create safe environments for human passage and all of that. But is there anything that Kenmore just offers, because they're a wonderful little community, to us that doesn't cost us anything and doesn't ask anything of us? And I think that's what this is intended to be to some great degree. So I think it would just bear keeping in mind what the impact of that might be, even to ask for donation, because donation will sometimes create in people's mind a guilt issue. And so if they don't want to give, they just don't go. Even if it's $2. I mean, people are funny. Money psychology is a very funny thing, and it doesn't really matter what the dollar amount is in many cases. So I'm just throwing that out there as a thought that passed through my mind.
And I agree, in the lens of DEI, I think that mental, just cognizant of, like, even by asking donation, that does create some sort of barrier for people that see that. And then one other thing I thought, economic development, these even upgrade marketing tools that we're not seeing kind of the other side of it, the money bring, like, for example, I lived in Redmond for 10 years, love Redmond. When I was buying a house, didn't know about Kenmore enough. How I found out Kenmore, went to a summer contest and that, and that's how I found out Kenmore. That's how I came up and bought a house here, so, like, there's some economic development, these even advertise that draws people to the city that we can't quantify. I mean, maybe we can't quantify it, but I think that there are some benefit on the dollar side of it that helps with these events. And in the national night out, another thing I think, coming from the lens of when we're talking about even just community engagement, having police building deeper community with, like, the police and firefighters with community, special community college, that's a great opportunity there for them just to be out in the neighborhood. So, like, to me, it's like, that's something I just can't, quantify it, and it's just great benefit to the community. So.
The way, I appreciate your perspective of this transactional, but I look at it differently, because I think of taxes, and taxes are by their nature tough, because you have to collect taxes from everybody. You can't be discriminatory with taxes, or it's especially difficult to be discriminatory with taxes, like with property taxes, things like that. But with donations, it is, we are giving this to you freely, and you have the opportunity to donate. And so you can be discriminatory with their choice, right? So, like, a person who does not have the financial ability to donate doesn't have to. There can feel a little bit of reciprocity obligation, but not necessarily. Whereas me, I'm in a position where a donation like that would be easy. And I would be delighted to hand $20 over to any one of these events, knowing that like, I get to contribute to the city's ability to be generous. They don't have to charge taxes to do a fireworks show. They can use my donation to provide a fireworks show that benefits the community. And so, like, I think if you frame it in the right way, that you can kind of counteract some of that, like, transactional, like, pay a fee, get in the door sort of thing, and really turn it into, hey, we want to continue to be a community and have these community events. How can our community come together and turn this into something that we as a community are providing, and not taxing people to provide? So that's kind of my perspective.
I think we're knocking back on the foundation door.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I view those in the same realm. It's like you can have a foundation that does fundraising and they can be the ones running the booths.
Basically charge like a higher fee for, July, if you wanna rent the shelter, you know. kind of thing.
We should add that to the list of revenue sources. We're actually developing a picnic shelter rental policy now where it won't be just Long Boom, but it'll be Flat Buddies, New Orleans, Rhododendron, we already do, missing one, but yeah. Hey, can I give you guys one more piece of information? Back to photo enforcement. This bill that's in the legislature, the last version I saw requires low-income violators to get 50% discount on their first ticket. And cities can choose to give even more of a discount if they wish.
That's great.
So that was the last version of the bill. When the bill finally gets adopted, which I might have already this week, I'll tell you more about it.
So I moved forward because I knew in here, Jennifer also talks about, reservations. So eliminate reservations at City Hall, but then, I guess these are still in reduction, but there's a place where she talks about, charging.
Is when we have, when we allow reservations at City Hall, can we kind of consolidate it? So if they do have like less than 30 people, they can't reserve City Hall, they've got to go over there. Or, you know, whatever that number is that their maximum capacity is over there. So it's a more cost effective operation.
And I know at the hangar, I have a few friends that belong to book clubs and they do silent book reading and things like that. And they all spend money at either Diva or next door at the restaurant. I'd just be surprised if, I don't know what eliminate reservations mean. I mean, does that mean a larger group can't, it's first come, first serve, or? You know, just to make sure that's clear.
That's a good question. One other little point of information is we get from Diva.
Have a booking fee.
Our lease with Diva, we get 6% of their gross revenue. So
Yeah.
for every cup of coffee somebody gets, the city gets 6% plus sales tax.
That's great.
We need tons of money.
We need to sell more coffee.
Put a minimum reservation with the minimum spend
Open a bar.
attached to it.
We actually did tell them that they can serve alcohol and they tried it for a little while and I don't think they do anymore.
Here she talks about, LED, transition to LED lights and just done some good analysis here actually, about making the changeover and what our costs are monthly, annually, and an estimate for,
So are those the street, is that the street fund?
yeah, streets, street fund.
Which is part of your purview.
Mhm.
And to make, I don't know what her, maybe she says it in here, but she's getting a grant from Puget Sound Energy to switch all of our old streetlights to.
Yeah, it's in here. She said, we can get 200,000 for the conversion, so out of pocket would be 260. And then it talks about
Oh,
annual savings.
Basically within
And
3 or 4
going
years,
up
we
to
can make that.
It's a pretty significant savings.
70,000, okay.
And now.
And that's not in the model yet.
No,
no.
that's not the model.
So are the sodium vapor ones, are those ones that have PCBs in them?
I thought PCBs were banned decades ago.
Yeah, I mean, they're not putting new ones in, but I figured we might still have some around.
I highly doubt it.
Then it's very inconvenient when the pole comes down and breaks the PCB transformer, they shut down the whole road and it becomes a big out situation.
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing around Kenmore.
Yeah. Maybe.
Oops. Let me just get, okay, so revenue ideas, park use permits, charge recreation providers a fee for using city parks, create a park specific permit instead of using the special events permit. Let's catch all. Picnic shelter rental revenues. This will be starting in the spring, summer of this year. At Morelands, Pawadis, Log Room, Rhododendron Park. And then somebody asked earlier about property, so we'll sell the post office and the, shell property once vacated and then sell Cozy Inn as possible. One time.
So does that mean close the post office? Like,
Yeah, that,
the post office?
No, the post office could still be a tenant, we could sell it.
Like lease it or- oh,
Probably once a quarter, I get somebody wanting to, who is in the business of buying post office properties, wanting to buy that from us.
well,
So,
Do they pay us rent currently?
Hmm?
Do they pay us rent currently?
yeah, it's in the neighborhood of 50 or 60,000 a year that they're paying us.
What, can you go back?
Yep.
What's the Shell property? Where's that?
That's where the Plymouth project was gonna go.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Where's, I don't know the Cozy Inn.
It's on Boston Way, right next to the, marijuana.
And the massage.
it's one going off the cliff.
Where the giant cell tower is.
I got you. Thank you. Okay.
Selling property, that could be in your recommendation, but it doesn't get us the long-term ongoing sustainability that we're looking for.
We talked about that
Do,
before.
do we increase,
You said leasing it, Mike.
does the lease of like the post office have built-in increases? Or is it flat, or how does that work?
Have to look at the lease. Yeah.
Because that's one of those areas where selling it is a one-time boost, but like, if you have income. You
Why
know,
would you-
if you can increase your rent by 5% a year, then that helps with your lines crossing constantly, so. That would,
I saw an email on solar. Does the city get a deep discount for using solar itself? As far as trying to reduce that electric bill all over the city as far as depth and solar?
Like on our own buildings?
Yeah, on the city's buildings and maybe some of the street lights.
I don't know. That's a great question. We should write that down.
there's usually incentives for the capital costs, just like with the lights. You know, it's like, here's $200,000 to convert your stuff, and then you get the benefit of the savings on the electric on the back end.
Yeah.
City Hall has some solar on it now,
Oh,
but we have room for more. And about a year ago, we got an estimate for about $80,000 to fill out the rest of City Hall. But nicely enough, there's a grant application with Department of Commerce that just opened up for grants to put solar on places like city halls. So we're applying for that right now.
oh,
Do we have, or is this part of it, like an occupancy rate for the properties that we can lease, like instead of selling the post office, maybe leasing it like we do, or the Cozy Inn, you know, that property, you know, helping the economic development, someone come in that would be interested in developing. Is there someone on the team that does that?
Well, it's gone now, just land.
Cozy Inn is, yeah, demolished, but,
Right.
but so you're asking.
So I guess the two questions, like who's in charge of getting that sold or leased or making money for us?
Debbie Benton, Community Development.
Okay, it's under the community
The
development.
council talked about the Cozy Inn a few weeks ago, and their decision is to hold it for a few years.
Just have it empty, like blank.
Yeah, for a few years.
Additional thought on selling the property. I'm thinking of university's metropolitan district downtown. How 100+ years ago, they decided they weren't going to sell all the property or the prior location of the university. And for the last 100 and some years, they've collected tens of millions of dollars in ground rent out of the property and allowed, and you can see what's on that property right now is major developments in downtown. This is a pretty good located property in what we're trying to develop is our downtown. 10, 20 years down the line, and this could be a significant, piece of revenue. And you'd also be able to maintain control over.
Get a couple more 6% of gross revenue options, you know, like that makes up for a lot of sales tax.
I mean, something to think. Maintaining something like that is a metropolitan type of district where the city holds it as an investment. And at the same time, you control the development because you still own the property, yeah. So you'll be compatible with with our economic development plan and provide a source of long-term revenue that increases with inflation against our structural deficit.
Last one, finance.
This is where the big money is.
Hey.
Get rid of those
No,
photocopiers, come
there's a
on.
Big number in there.
Who's still printing stuff?
Is that per 2 years ongoing?
Yeah, so it's 400,000 a year and ongoing. Yes. So this, like I mentioned, this was a good exercise for me to learn more about my budget. We definitely have, more dollars budgeted than we need in our photocopier budget. It's not huge, but for my department, it is. So 20 grand is 20 grand. And then areas we need to spend time looking into, and we have talked about this, is our insurance rates. Currently over $1 million for the biennium, and we've already started doing some research on that and trying to get some new numbers. I asked, we have detailed information on our property and our vehicles, but not on the liability piece. Like, it's just like, here's what you owe us. And I said, well, can I get the details? And she said, well, what do you want? I want the calculation. Like, how are you coming up with this? And she really didn't give it to me.
We
So-
contacted AWC,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of information that they need in order to give us some sort of a quote on.
Yeah.
their-
So, so those are some ideas, and then possibly reduce banking costs, do an RFP.
Melinda, from your perspective, what would be the downside to increasing the electric utility tax? Is there a downside to increasing it by 2%? What's the
It's
risk?
a regressive tax.
Mhm.
So lower income people would be paying a greater portion of their income.
Okay.
And council used to be, up until a year ago, gas tax and electric were both 4%. Council made a policy decision to bring gas to 6%, but not electric because of climate.
Mhm.
Because one, electrification is part of our climate action plan. So they didn't want to make electric more expensive.
This is a total sidebar, but just for curiosity, is the council well versed in how electric is made in our area? Climate plan wise, and I know we have a lot of hydropower, our state's pretty well suited and some nuclear for that, but most electricity is generated by fossil fuels, so it is not clean. So I'm just curious about that. It may not be the right conversation for here, but it's come up in my mind a couple times as we've been talking over the last few sessions.
That is a dirty little secret that a portion of PSE's portfolio is coal. They do have a date certain by the time they'll get rid of coal. I can't remember, it's like in the 2030s, I believe. But they're supposed to be rid of fossil fuels in the next decade or so.
All the fossil fuels or just coal?
I believe all, yeah.
Okay.
So a bunch of nuclear.
When you're talking about the increase in the tax and mentioning it's a regressive one, it might affect, disproportionately, lower income families. Are there also ways that we can, build in, programs for that to say, for offsetting that? When you increase the tax, and that's, I don't know if there is, but just saying you could apply for, a discounted or the raise doesn't affect you. Or you could apply to have that neutralized or something.
Yeah, that, you were reading my mind on that. So I think that if this city council increases any tax, whether it's property or anything, for DEI reasons, I do think there needs to be a corresponding low income discount or rebate program.
Yeah.
And I would hope that would be part of any recommendation that you guys had that has a revenue piece to it?
Well, because PSC already has programs,
Yes,
but I know there was a previous city council meeting where a former city council member said that the city should be expected to do that and not PSC, because apparently with some of the overpopulation, they don't like those assistance programs. It had a bad connotation from years when they were growing up. So we shouldn't be expecting them to go on a PSC program, then the city should cover the cost.
so PSE does have some low income discount programs. One of them is called LIHEAP, and I can't remember what it stands for. You have to be very low income to qualify for that one. And I think our threshold should be higher than the LIHEAP one.
Is there anything built in on that gas tax increase for low income
No,
by the city?
no.
Well, as we talked earlier, we were talking about this, we know the policy used to increase electricity, decrease gas. So we're going to face a shortfall as the usage of gas goes down on the tax on that. So I think the offset for DEI is an important issue. I think in order to recoup that and recognize that we're moving more toward an electric facilities out there in the way we generate electricity, heat our homes and everything else. That an increase of that tax up to 6% doesn't seem to me unrealistic or unreasonable if we have some sort of offset for DEI. But I think we have to recognize that this is policy and we're going to need to generate at least an equal amount of revenue in the future.
The other DEI consideration, even when you do have these programs, is that the people who are least likely to be aware of them and use them are the people who most need them. And so there's a lot of outreach that the city needs to do.
Thank you.
And not just traditional means, right? Like not just sending newsletters and emails to the email chains, but like going and engaging in neighborhoods and with individuals.
Churches and organizations.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have a housing and human services.
Or you know if they're signed up for other programs
Mhm.
and you can.
Engaging with nonprofits, you know, anywhere where these people,
Mhm.
you know.
I don't mean to cut off conversation, but we're an hour behind on the agenda. Are we trying to still get through all of this?
And to Jeff's point, sorry, but to Jeff's point, the LIHEAP program and the other rebate programs are severely underutilized already. So
Right.
there's tons more people that qualify for those programs in Kenmore that actually use them.
Yeah, there needs to be an education.
Yeah, that much effort to sign on.
I think also part of the consideration here, the plan to move away from fossil fuels into more electricity is not a Kenmore standalone policy. But this is a national, not an international objective. So I think this is one of those places where we should be pushing back on the county and the state, to say, okay, we do need to have better education. We're gonna have people utilize these programs. There's lots of things that Kenmore could do, but I'm not sure that we could do it all on our own. But this is something that should be a bigger priority across the region, and we need to have help or be part of that larger piece. Doing it on our own, I think, becomes some of the problem. I don't know how effective we can be.
Are we supposed to be done by now?
Yes.
Okay, one thought is we stop the meeting and do the rest of the agenda next week.
I didn't mean to stop the meeting. I just wanted to bring it home.
Two of the items, the remaining items are ideas for ideas, which we've discussed a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think the only outstanding item is really,
You're supposed to.
and I can be quick, like it's not
Yeah,
gonna take, it's not gonna take 25 minutes to walk through this. So if you guys are willing to stay for another 10.
Cool.
Sure.
10
Good.
can.
We can do 10.
Razzle
Do you
dazzle
want
us.
to come up here and?
Is there an HDMI? I'd rather just present mine if you don't mind.
She's gotta go down. It's gotta go down under, and then it'll reach him.
I can show you the old one and then I can show you the new one.
This was a pretty magical thing at the task force in 2020.
Yeah, well, we've been talking.
And Mike remembers it, but if you're if you want to see the magic of it, just go see the last two FSP task force meetings in August of 2022.
Okay. Okay, so, this is the spreadsheet. So the nice thing, the advantage that we had last time was that we had a consultant come in and basically gave us these 27 options as ideas for, you know, the types of revenues, the type of expenses. They had done the work of combing through expenses, combing through all these things and said, here are your options. And so you can see we put them into categories. Our scoring was 3, pursue as a priority, 2, pursue as a secondary priority, with fewer dedicated resources. 1 is pursue as a last resort, and 0 is don't do this, do not pursue. Then the type, revenues, initiatives, expenditure controls or shifting, those kinds of things. This is kind of the short, you know, you can see cable there, you can see waste, you can see the photo enhancement or photo and traffic enforcement, the fiscal impact. So this is the annual dollar impact. So they needed this additional funding because the street fund was underfunded. So we were kind of doing both sides of that. We could have chosen to recommend against adding that additional street maintenance. But we wanted to drive on non-pothole streets. So we decided to recommend that. The potential of success, this is where we balance what Rob has talked about a couple of times, council manic, where the council can just vote to do it versus getting voter approval. And then what we did is we basically just had everybody kind of add their own preferences, their own rankings. So you can see here's my column here. There's Michael's column, everybody's column. And so you could add your score. And then we also had areas where people had comments. Show hide note. So this is a comment that somebody left. Consider the equity decision tool for hiring this and other city positions. So if you have commentary to add on your specific why you marked it as you did, this was all given to the council so they could see everybody's votes. You know, if there's one where half of us said yes and half of us said no, they could see that. And then we took the average and then rounded it. And so we put all of the ones that rounded up to 3, we put in the top section as on average, we say pursue this as a priority. The second is you know, had more mixed, and so it ended up scoring a 2. And we were able to meet the budget shortfall with just those that as a group we collectively decided were 3s. So all of this kind of plugged into this model here. So we, you know, these were all those same numbers, and we plugged in, we marked the ones that we voted as number 3 pursue, and then it flowed through the rest of the model and this is what we ended up proposing, I think. Yeah, task force priority greater than 3. So yeah, that's the graph that it was in 2019. So anyway, so this is what we did last time. And then I've been taking notes here, trying to get us ready for something similar. So same structure. We talked a lot about revenue items, a couple of expense reductions here. I tried to capture some of the fiscal impact. Some of these we'll have to get some estimates. And then notes. Yeah, potential of success. You know, so we can get assistance from city staff. We can kind of debate and maybe do some analysis ourselves to try to fill out these columns when it will come into some of these things take longer, like photo enforcement. You can't put a camera in and start getting stuff immediately. And so that won't have an impact until later in the period. Some notes. And then I've got a section here for everybody's scores. So as we start to get those numbers solidified, then we can start inputting our preferences, and then we'll do the same thing. We can do the same thing. All of this is just, what we can do. We can do something else, of course, and then see where we land. The nice thing about this is it gives us a structured place for everybody to put their input, and kind of see where it comes out, and then we can continue to debate as needed.
So you're saying the first time around, the ideas were sort of pre-generated by consultants?
Yeah.
I wonder if we might comb through those in addition to what we captured from our discussions and see if there's things that were not implemented.
Yeah.
At whatever point that we might also think about.
Yeah, and you'll notice that a lot of these things we have talked about again. Like, for example, I think down here somewhere is electric, B&O taxes. We talked about reducing police services. That was not popular. So yeah, a lot of similar stuff. But yeah, we can absolutely comb through these and see if there is appetite for it.
Holly, the city council agrees with you. They specifically asked that you all look at what you just asked for, and including, so the task force in 2020 recommended a bunch of things, and council did not rubber stamp all of those things. Some of the things that the committee recommended did not get approved by the council. The council wants you guys to look at those things too.
Also, does your model do a, like a low, medium and high outcome? So that, for example, we're saying revenues may be 200,000. Does it also do like, well, best case scenario, middle scenario, low case scenario? So you could kind of see what the best would be. The average will probably be in the lowest to the worst case scenario.
Yeah, we did not do that. The consultant management partners, they did have a couple scenarios. They had a no recession forecast and a recession forecast. We did not do that low, medium, high on the impacts, but they had a little bit of that work. So this is where, these kinds of models can be, you can spend months.
Yeah.
I do spend months. That is my full-time job. I've spent years developing some of these models. And so I would recommend, my recommendation is for things where there is a significantly wide margin, like maybe photo enforcement. Maybe we should have done a low end and a high end instead of just saying 1.7. We should have said this could range from this to that. So if there is something that we really have a low confidence on, then putting that in an interval. But for
I like
things
that
that are,
word, if you have low confidence, then
Yeah.
mark that and know that so that our credibility stays
right.
strong.
So, but I think that there is an opportunity to do some of this kind of work with the base model, with the work that Melinda has done to say, like, which of these lines, we've made certain assumptions about these lines, inflation or income on reserves or things like that, where this could be this or it could be that, and kind of give us a range of worst case scenario on the base model, how much gap would we have to cover versus a more.
Or is it to add lines of ideas?
Oh, I mean, like I was doing it while we were talking. So yeah,
Yeah, and that leads to my question, which is structure. This is incredible. Thank you for building this for us. I think it's wonderful. And I think you're awesome. So this is great. Yeah. So I'm assuming when we next meet, part of our work will be to generate that first column on the left, both by reviewing the other content, by going back to our notes of things we've talked about, or rifling through some of the presentations and things. And we will just do a data dump or a brainstorm of all the possibilities. And then it seems to me like impact would be the next most important piece, because that helps us rank,
Yeah,
right?
Mhm.
Because we could be
Right.
super excited about something that's gonna bring in $14,000 a year, that's a low fiscal impact, so
exactly.
we maybe think about something that has a higher, but.
Yeah, so I
Is
think
that your thinking? Is that, or is that,
absolutely.
because we'll have to generate that left-hand column ourselves ultimately.
I'm actually hoping to lean on the staff a little bit because you've done a lot of this work already and just go through the presentation that we went through. And I was trying to type as quickly as I could as you were going. But if we could just translate what was in those presentations and put them into here, whether they have a number, a dollar value or not, start there. We add our ideas to the list and then we debate and come up with more ideas. That is our comprehensive list. And then once we have that list, yeah, we can work on trying to come up with.
And,
Go ahead, please.
well, to say, and maybe I missed it, but it's also there a column on who is the most affected by this. So that again, we don't come up with 6 suggestions that are all affecting the senior community. Or
Yeah.
6, suggestions that are all affecting one community over another.
Yeah, what we did, we kind of just put that into a notes category. Main contributors are bowling alley and golf course. We had some discussion about, here you can see the photo enforcement of where we wanted cameras and things like that. So we kind of just had like some commentary, but I think you're right, having a specific column about a DEI lens like column, I think would be a really great addition.
Well, yeah, and it not, I mean, big D, because it could be, like Vin was saying, it could be that our target is people who use, 522 as a thoroughfare. They're not even community residents. Like, we could capture kind of big categories of folk and see, like, I think that's a really important suggestion. Who's being impacted the most, and are we clumping?
Yeah.
In some way that's not reasonable.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, we can absolutely document that.
Those two. Thank you for saying that.
Process question. Is there any way we could get, for instance, our suggestions to staff before our next meeting? So when we're looking at something that's a little more refined, looking at our time and the way we use our time, we could be here a long time. If we're all gonna go around the table and throw out our suggestions and have somebody try and edit it as we go along, we'll never get to the meat of the thing.
Yeah, I think that I think putting, kind of a brainstorming document together, similar to what we did with the FAQs. And just like, okay, here's a table, tell us what it is, how much do you, maybe have like basically a smaller version of this. And just like have it be a list of things and we all just add.
Yeah, you could give us homework,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
is at least, if nothing else, between this and the next meeting, look at the one the consultants put together and pull the things that you don't already have listed on the new one that you'd like to see on the list.
Yeah.
Even something as simple as that.
So what I'll do is I will post this version in a place where you can all view it. I'm not going to give edit access so that you don't have to worry about breaking it or messing around with that. And then I will also create another version that is editable by all, where you can go in and add your name and your idea and your thoughts about it. And then I'll probably give you all edit access to this so that you can help kind of populate the details here. And then when we come together, we can really have a focused discussion.
Yeah, even just a template that we would fill in.
Mhm.
Give us the headings, the columns, and then if we have some new idea, we can look at what we've already got and see, well, if there's something new, we can add it and send that out to whoever's going to.
I like the idea of the shared document, which is what I think you were saying, because that saves someone editing back at the back end or clumping and dumping at the back end, that if we all worked on the same document. The only question I have is that I think early on, we were asked not to do much substantive work online. Right,
Outside of the meeting.
outside of the meetings.
Well, that's why you're using the FSP email and you're using the shared document site.
Yeah, my belief was that we weren't supposed to do anything substantive through the Kenmore email.
Oh, no, I didn't want you to do it through your personal.
Okay, then I missed it.
Well, no, I think you're on something there. So you definitely don't fall under the OPMA, the Open Public Meetings Act.
Yeah.
But for the public's benefit, you don't want to do a ton of deliberations on email. You need to do most of your deliberations here. Just for transparency and for the public's benefit. So yeah, I wouldn't have a bunch of, reply all emails where you're having a big discussion. Because the public should, even though we're not technically subject to OPMA, the public should still see how you came to your conclusions. But that said, it's okay to share a document and for you all to add to it and then discuss it in an open meeting like this.
Great, that would be great.
All right.
It's,
Yeah, that's fine, and next meeting is next Thursday, the 14th.
Wait, say what?
Next Thursday is the next meeting.
I'll be out.
Yes, that's right.
That's in a week, yeah.
Oh, that's just
Next week, right? Yeah.
We can't down it, right? And so,
Is there a possibility of having another screen here?
yeah, I'll just be.
Do you have
State.
in the building, a TV on wheels?
Just, yeah.
That's above and beyond the fall.
Yeah.
That makes it easy. That's an easy decision point. You might have to do that without us seeing.
For whatever reason.
At least.
Something. Then rather than having Jeff have the crap out of it, having another screen, keep that always on and look at another screen. If it's not possible. I'm thinking maybe.
Hey, before you guys go, did you ever think